All right, what's good, YouTube? We're back again with another tutorial. And today, as you can see, we're doing an 808 mixing tutorial. So this was a request from a Instagram follower that actually wanted to know how I mix my 808s. And so I figured I'd make a video on how to do it. If you haven't already, comment, like, subscribe, share this video with a friend or somebody else that you think may get some use out of it. And we'll hop on into FL Studio and get started. And I'm gonna show you guys how to mix some 808s. All right, so the first thing I like to do when I mix my 808s to start with is, let's go ahead and grab parametric EQ2. This is the mix that I do with everything, literally. So let's go ahead and play what we've got so far with no effects, nothing on there. All right, sounds pretty good, sounds pretty clear. Nothing crazy by any means, but this is what I like to do. So when I've got my 808 playing and I'm about to EQ it, this is how I typically do it. I start over here, I scroll this wheel down like on your mouse right there, the little scrolly wheel, and then I make it to where it's 4 squares. What that does is it makes this as a very sharp cut here. So 3 squares looks like that, then 2, then 1, and going back down to 4. The reason I make it a sharp cut like that is because what we want to do is we want to take out the unnecessary frequency. So this is a sub bass, so we don't need anything from the low, mid, up. You don't need any of that whatsoever. It's just going to muddy your mix and make everything sound just not as crisp and clean. So we're going to cut it all the way down to here where it's just the bass. So like if you were to look and move this all the way up, it literally just cuts all right at the bass. And then I like to boost right here where the bass actually is, like where it's actually punching and hitting, right? And then I boost some of the subs so that it kind of gives it some, I'm from the South, I like my trunk to shake, basically. That's why I do that. So I boost that just a touch, and I don't do too much because we're going to do some other things, right? So I add that parametric EQ. Now the order that you mix things in makes a difference. So you'd want to have you're going to want to set it up kind of in the order that I'm going to show you, right? So because we cut out some of that we cut out all that high end, I like to kind of replace it and give it some of that punch back. So we're going to go to Fruity Parametric EQ. We're going to hit this drop down, hit presets, and do bass drum punch. Now listen to what this sounds like with the punch. It hits a little bit harder, right? So it's still not quite there. Like I still think it sounds just a tad flat. So what we're going to do is going to go back and get Fruity Parametric EQ again. And this time we're going to do sub bass boost, right? What this does is, let's go back over here. Basically all of this that I took out, the first parametric EQ, that's the parametric EQ punch or bass drum punch, is going to basically add this back in there, like this actual punch and this hit, without adding the muddiness with it. And then what this sub does is just kind of boost all this here to give you a good trunk shaking, knock-in, speaker knock-in type of sound. So let's see what it sounds like with all this on. As you can hear, it hits a lot harder, right? But we're definitely peaking. So what we want to do is play with these volumes a little bit. We're going to bring this volume down to where literally we want to have it where it's just shy of peaking. So we want to basically kill all this white out. So we're almost there, but not quite yet. Still got a little touch of white right there. See? You see how it's still peaking just a little bit? And it's kind of orangey here. Orange is okay. We just don't want red, right? And if you notice, some of the notes do peak just a touch, and then some of them don't. So what I like to do is just make sure we cut out all of that. So that should do it right there. We pretty much want to have the highest level of, in this case, purple that we can get without touching any white. Now, it still sounds really good. It sounds great. But what it sounds like now is it sounds like everything is kind of combined and mushed together. What we want to do is separate the frequencies of your melodies, your hi-hats and everything, and separate it with the from the 808. So what I do is go down here and use a stereo separation, and we're literally going to turn it to all the way 100%. And that basically makes it from going from having your sound, all your sounds smushed and combined together like this, to having them separate but still on top of each other. So it's like two separate different frequencies. So this frequency, which is your bass, and this frequency, which is your hi-hat, snares, and all that other stuff, are separated but still, you know, on top of each other rather than combined with each other, right? And that'll give it a little bit more crisp and clarity to it, right? So we're still not quite done. What I like to do is I like to go hop over to the master and add Fruity Soft Clipper. All I do is just literally just put it on there and set it and forget it. There's nothing else. I don't use any like presets or anything like that. It's just the default setting. And basically all it does is compress everything and smush it all together. So if I take that soft clipper off, you'll see that everything's going to start peaking. See? We're at about negative or positive 3 dB. And that's not what you want. You don't want your mix to be over really 0. Like, you can do it a little lower than 0. You can technically do it a little higher than 0. But the reason you want to have it kind of at 0 dB is because that leaves the chance for the engineer to, when they're mixing and they're recording an artist, to do gain staging and lower that volume without having to do too much. Because if I send it over to a mix engineer and it's peaking 3 dB, and he's normally used to lowering a beat to like negative 5 dB, for example, he's going to have to definitely do it to at least negative 8. But once you start getting past negative 8, 9, 10, and you're going into 11 and 12, negative 12 dB range and all that stuff, it makes it a lot harder for them to mix because the beat's going to be so quiet and the vocals are going to be so loud. So then they're going to have to bring the volume down on the vocals to compensate for that, because they don't want the vocals way too loud over the beat. And then now your whole entire song is extremely quiet. And the only way that they can offset that is to basically over compress it and boost the sounds, and it doesn't sound as crisp and clear. So if you want to increase your chances of getting placements and whatnot, make sure you're mixing your 808s properly. So after I throw that soft clipper back on there, this is what you'll see is going to happen. Right at 0 dB. Now everything else plays a role, like where your hi-hat, snares, and claps and everything are, and where your melodies sit. So I always like to mix things to where, one, I can hear my melodies very clear. I like having my clap, hi-hats, and snares just slightly higher in volume, especially the clap in particular, than my melody, so that way it cuts through the mix. And then I like having my 808s just at the loudest compared to everything else. I like having my 808s at the loudest compared to everything else, simply because I like to have my 808s hit. And you know, using that stereo separation causes it to not clash and combine with everything. So this is the combination that I typically do with pretty much all my beats, just depending on the beat. And I always like to try to mix and make my mix hit around 0 dB. You can go a little bit lower than that if you want to. That doesn't hurt. But going over is where you start kind of having problems. If you're over by a dB, maybe 2 max, it's not bad. But 0 dB is the perfect sweet spot, because that's almost like a perfectly mixed beat, which will then allow the engineer to properly gain stage, which increases your chances of a song being put out there and it being mixed properly, it sounding good, and, you know, having a clean mix. So that's really all I got for you guys today. I hope you guys enjoyed that tutorial. I try to keep these short, sweet, and simple nowadays. And if you haven't already, follow, like, subscribe, show some love to the page so I can keep doing this. I'm trying to do this more often, more frequently, but I need you guys' help. You guys got to watch these videos. You got to like, you got to comment, you got to share, all that stuff. You know what I mean? So the algorithm works in my favor, and the YouTube gods start to bless me. So I hope that helps people out. I know this is a tutorial that I wish I had when I was a new producer. I didn't know how to mix or anything like that. And a lot of people gatekeep and won't show you the VSTs and what they do. And if you notice, all this stuff is stock VSTs or either a free VST, like this Fresh Air over here. And so, like, you know, I try to keep it simple and sweet, so that way anybody that's just starting out producing and they're using FL Studio, they can follow along and do the same things that I'm doing. So I hope this helped you guys out, and we'll be back next week with another tutorial. And that's it. Like I say, follow, like, subscribe, man, and we'll be back next week. Peace.